At FitFiliate, we're excited to announce the Affiliate Engineering Seminar. Coming soon to an affiliate near you, don't miss this exciting opportunity to create the affiliate of your dreams. Link in show notes or in bio to register. Welcome to the FitFiliate Podcast. And welcome back to our next episode of the FitFiliate Podcast, joined as always by my entertaining co-host, the one and only Tony. But today we are super excited to have one of CrossFit OGs, Mike Anderson, on, owner of CrossFit Malibu, and just as exciting, also creator of FITGMR, which we'll dig into a bit today. So two very, it would seem diverse enterprises, but we'll dig into that today about the parallels. And welcome. We're excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's always fun to think about this concept of video game playing, high sports performance, esports, which is the world that I've been in for, going on a little over 6 years now, and it has run completely parallel with my CrossFit universe as well, instead of diametrically opposed. And that actually is that's what we'll go into in depth today.
Yeah, awesome.
I say this a lot on most of the podcasts that I'm excited about this episode, because generally I only bring people on here that I truly am excited about. Otherwise, I tend to not show up to the podcast episode. Spoiler. But I'm very excited about this one for lots of different reasons. But what I think is cool about this story is that you and I just basically fired off an email to you in regards to the shed, right? In terms of the CrossFit Malibu shed. And basically that led to a conversation. And I would say quickly became like fast friends. I think, you guys, anybody's listening to this has heard me say it enough. Like everybody in the CrossFit world is kind of like cousins, right? They're all like CrossFit cousins, especially those of us who are like 10 plus year CrossFitters and like seminar staff instructors and whatnot. We don't ever see each other. And in like Mike's case, in my case, we didn't even know each other, but you put us on a call together and it's like we grew up together. And it was a very interesting conversation. But I'm excited about this one, mainly in that what you have done from and since CrossFit Malibu is so, in my opinion, incredibly valuable to people listening to this. I'm hopeful that they take away the value in this story and understanding what we talk about a lot, which is CrossFit is so much bigger than what CrossFit is in terms of its application and implementation. And I think what you've done with the work that you've put into FITGMR and the world of esports, I think it's so antithetical to what people think conventionally in a CrossFit gym. This might actually get their attention to be like, holy shit, we can do so much with CrossFit, because everybody talks about the same cliche things like, saving their mother and their grandparents, those things. And like, those are important, but it gets lost in the nuance. But like to deal with something so diametrically opposed, as you said, is like, this stereotype that people might have of what an esports athlete is, and to be like, oh wait, they are human and they actually need us as much as we need them. So I'm very excited about this episode. So that's my intro.
Let me just jump in and say at the very beginning, at the outset, because you've already thrown out the word esports athlete. And so by esports, there are people that are watching, listening, that have already at least mentally checked out when they heard that word, because instead of people wondering, oh, what does esports mean? That it's sort of like, if it doesn't mean anything to you, then you probably check out. So I won't go as far as defining the word, but esports is the competitive game, that competitive world of video game playing, the elite of the gamers. So anything from first person shooter to battle royale to MOBA type games. We're talking League of Legends, Call of Duty, Valorant, Overwatch, Fortnite. Any of those things are video games in and of themselves, but once they are bracketed into tournament play, and I'll go into detail a little bit later on this, and become games that you can not only earn $1 million as a professional athlete playing, but there's tournaments, there's the Olympics. It goes as far as that. And I'll kick off this idea of how has CrossFit really framed my business in the video game world, which then we'll backtrack and talk a little bit more about. It. This idea that I have been for the past 6 years working with the tip of the spear when it comes to video game players. And so if I were to try and develop high performance video game players by working with people who play Candy Crush, by working with old ladies who play Candy Crush, I could not backfill with the best players in the world. So ultimately, we've taken the CrossFit methodology in terms of the way that CrossFit started was to start with the tip of the spear and then backfill with the proverbial grandmother. So that's what I have for the past 6 years been working with an organization called Cloud9, which because I'm from Los Angeles originally, I'll say that Cloud9 is a gaming organization, a professional, elite gaming organization that could be compared to the LA Dodgers. If I don't know, are you a Yankee fan or Tony being
I'm technically officially a Mets fan? So
you are the 1 in 10.
Yep.
And now I'm living in Boston Red Sox world. So Cloud9 is the Red Sox of gaming. Like they're kind of the good guys of the professional gaming world. So anyway, that's where I am now in terms of I've been working with them for the past 6 years, and we've started an organization, an outgrowth of CrossFit Malibu, essentially, that really trains high performance professional video game players. And we've developed a curriculum, an app, and an entire business model and plan and team that goes out looking for people that want to become better at video game players, better at video games. And then it's an entire, a 5-pillar fitness plan dedicated to high performance game playing.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people would just associate just casually, like gamers are like the 12-year-old boys locked in the bedroom. They never see daylight, and not associate it with being professional. But it's interesting when you talk about having a 5-pillar fitness plan. It's like when people traditionally would think about a gamer, they're not thinking about that they are people that would benefit or need from a fitness plan. But, when you're talking about the tip of the spear, clearly, like understanding the CrossFit methodology that we do, we understand that like all of those things go towards helping, every aspect of life, not just, your physical able to move large objects over long distances. So it's probably an interesting paradigm shift for people listening to this about the concept of gamers being, underground, in their bedroom, whatever, to professional elite athletes.
Well, 3 years ago, I think it was now, the cover of Sports Illustrated was a bunch of professional football and basketball players with a couple of professional gamers on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And the title was something like "Gamers Want to Be Athletes, Athletes Want to Be Gamers." And, that's really, video game playing is probably at the top of the list in terms of things that many / most people in the world do, that they do for fun and for relaxation, for enjoyment, to be competitive with their friends. And it's far more than like CrossFit. I mean, clearly CrossFit is a speck of sand on the beach of video games, right? It pales in comparison. So when I looked at, and this is actually speaking sort of retroactively, because I didn't actually think, what am I going to do that's going to help move the needle on chronic disease in the world, right? I opened a gym is what I did, right? And, we service less than 100 people in a very small town. But when I had the opportunity, and I'd like to talk a little bit about how that opportunity came about, to train these athletes and then to move into the video game world, I thought retroactively of, wow, like of the populations on the planet that could benefit from being physically fit and have some nutrition and sleep assistance and some, we call it mental conditioning, like conditioning the brain, the mind, the body in order to be better at video games, which will then elicit a human being that's better at actually playing video games. This is one of the largest populations in the world. Like it dwarfs, there's human, the umbrella is there's human beings, there's men, women, then there's people that eat food, people that sleep, and then there's video game players. Like it's number 6 in the world's largest demographic. And because the stereotype of the gamer who doesn't do much physical activity, that eats poorly, that has basically inverted their lifestyle in terms of staying up all night and sleeping during the day, that stereotype is largely completely true. Now, particularly in the competitive and sub-competitive world. Now, the video game world is so much larger than people that the stereotype embodies, because there are people that play, mobile games is the largest subset of video game players. And these tend to be people that play, on the airplane or in line at the market or during class while they should be doing something else. So the population is massive. It's 2 point something billion. It's segmented almost exactly half and half. Now you do see that most esports professional athletes are male, like in the 90th percentile. But when it comes to like downloading games to the phone or at a PlayStation, a console, a PC, it is pretty much half and half across the world. Now most of them are in Asia. 60% of the world's gamers happen to be in Asia. Half of the world tends to be in Asia, like between.
I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
India, it's kind of there. So that's kind of the big picture of what I've been doing the past, really full time for the past 3 years.
Yeah. I think, first of all, I hope people did tune out when they heard esports, because I hope that they tuned out and then the rest of everybody that stays on realizes how valuable this episode is, and then they can tell everybody how big of a fool they were for tuning out. Like, one of my favorite quotes is from my good friend Tosh, which is, what we know is in the way of knowing. And it's such a prevalent conversation, especially as it applies to the fitness world, where, there might be a form of elitism that exists inside the CrossFit space, where they don't necessarily, what they know to be true about fitness gets in the way of their ability to know what could be true of fitness. And so this is you'll see me probably smirk a lot through this episode, because one, I don't know anything about the gamer world, as much as the fact that, like, the thing I do know is that, like I said it before this, is that if I pick up a game console, you guys will never see me again. But that's a whole different conversation. That's the only thing I know. And it's like a conscious avoidance because of my addictive personality. But what I think is interesting about the game conversation, and then we can move into your backstory, is that games fall essentially into the same predisposition that most things do, where I think people tend to use games in one of two ways: as a distraction, and then there's people who use games as an intention, which is like the people that you work with, right? Like, most people, you're right, pick up the thing, they download the thing, they play it in the airport, and like, that's just the thing they do to not have to be present. But the people that you're dealing with, much like the people who are inside an affiliate too, are the people who are intentionally applying themselves to something for a future endeavor, right? Like, these kids are ideally, these team people are, this is their career, it's their life, this is their entire future. So I think that is an important nuance that it would be a disservice to not touch on, and that, like, people do write off gamers as like, yeah, you people who aren't present and you're distracted. I'm like, no, these people are literally, it is their passion, it is their pursuit, it is their purpose to play these games. And like, they're not what you think of when, like, you watch your mom play Candy Crush for hours in the airport, right? This is not the same thing. Like, and I think they'd be well served to watch some of these. And I have, admittedly, since I ran into you and this whole thing, I've fallen down the rabbit hole of watching the Twitch streams. I'm like, these people are, because I was going to say kids, but they're not kids. These people are insanely good. I can't even, I've admittedly, as shows my age, not watched many people play games. That's another funny thing. Like, kids today, they just grow up watching people play video games. Like, it's a bizarre. So I watched and I'm like, how do they can move that person on that screen better than they can move themselves. So you have completely warped my entire opinion of this whole thing. And admittedly, I think I must have had an opinion, but so it's hopefully people didn't tune out, but if they did, shame on them, because I think there's a lot of value in here, not in terms of like, I want you to love, the gamer world, but to understand that, like, dude, you can do so many things for so many people if you choose to do the right things for the right people.
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, I can go into so many different directions off of what you were just talking about. I have, for the past 3 years, watched far more gaming than I have of any professional sport. And that's pretty easy because I don't watch much. I do watch some CrossFit. And if you're at the CrossFit Games watching someone watch CrossFit Games, it clearly people get excited about it. And it's clear, if you go on Twitch or any one of the other, places that you can watch gaming, you'd be excited about it too. You just get excited for the people that are excited about it. In the same way that, God, it was maybe 6-7 years ago that Shaquille O'Neal took his kids to Staples Center to watch. I don't remember if it was couldn't have been Fortnite that long ago, but it was some sort of championship for gaming, and he started investing in gaming because he said it was the best live spectator atmosphere that he knew nothing about, that he had experienced, right? Like, so
Yeah.
hockey does a really good job of getting people excited. In fact, diehard hockey people probably don't really like it as much because there's so much more about the actual puck on the ice in a hockey game, right? The drawings, the shooting the t-shirts out, the fireworks, the laser shows, the music, it's pretty amazing. But video games obviously, I mean, they do a great job at drawing you into the game, but they do a great job at drawing you into the entire experience. And that's the way it's become. Like my kids, we watch Cloud9's primarily their League of Legends team because it's the team that I've been working with the longest. And my kids know that Fudge is the top laner, that Blabber is the jungler. The mid laner has changed out a lot of, over the past years. I'll talk about Perks, one of the mid laners from the past. And then we've got support and bot laner. And my kids know all the names of those players, and they can name each one of the past 6 years of the mid laners, right? And now to Lisa, it's like she's talking about rugby or cricket, and I have no idea what's going on in terms of these positions. But really, and there are plenty of people that watch the Super Bowl that don't have any idea what's going on, but you watch the ball go down the field and you see him score a touchdown, people get excited, and it's really a lot of the same thing. Yeah. But the cool thing about my kids is that they know these professional players, and while they don't know the nuances of the game at all, my kids don't play League of Legends, they understand that it's basically sort of like capture the flag, and you have all these special powers and skills. And it is, as a guy that worked with us for in our mental conditioning, mental performance area of FITGMR for a number of years, said League of Legends is like chess if it were actually hard, because the game. Think about chess. If every 6 months, like your pawn now moves 3 spaces every move, and every second pawn that moves, it can go diagonally. Now, chess enthusiasts would say that's the weakness in the game of League of Legends, and that's why chess is so good, that it stays so competitive. But it's why the brains of people that are really good at League of Legends are so strong, is that they can make these split-second decisions based on a player that they are playing or an avatar that they're playing with against people who are playing a different avatar every single match. And they can think, and their reaction time, movement time, split-second decision-making, if you listen to the communications, the comms between the players, they're all wearing headsets. They can communicate with the 5 people on their team in microseconds. They're basically calling. Now, admittedly, I don't know anything about military operations, but what's going on those in those comms is probably most comparable to breaching a door in Afghanistan in the military. Like that kind of, clearly it is not life or death, but in the game it's the same. It's whether or not you're going to live or die. Or like the mid laner from Europe that was playing for Cloud9 a number of years ago, he was making $2.25 million a year, and his buyout from the company from the team that he was with before in Europe to come to North America, they paid him $6 million. Now, if we compare that to Mike Trout, that's nothing, right? That's like, it doesn't matter. But in the video game world, people are getting paid a lot of money to be very good at what they do. And if you look at things like marginal gains in professional sports, if you are the stereotypical video game player who's not getting enough sleep, who's eating like crap, who is not physically fit, you can make more than marginal gains in your mental game, in your communications game, and in your training. And basically that's what we've done with FITGMR.
Yeah, it's a fascinating foray in terms of, just the you kind of said it in regards to like how many people play it. It is easily the largest subset of subsets of people that there's possibly out there. And I think it's impossible to know somebody who doesn't know somebody who plays a video game, right? And arguably, I think that the general disposition is that they play it too much, right? They're just doing the thing and it's at the expense of the thing. But the reality is that one, more people play video games than don't, and two, there is a much larger opportunity in terms of playing video games than many would like to accept. And the third is that the beauty of it is that there's still a person behind those people playing those video games, which is really probably like, it wouldn't be the same thing to watch, AI play against each other, because it'd be like, oh, wow, like look how much better they are. What I think is interesting and fascinating to me, especially as like a newcomer to watch it, is that like, it is still a person operating the, quote unquote person on the screen, or the avatar on the screen. And by that reason, it is completely logical, given everything that we know to be true about what happens in CrossFit and through CrossFit and functional fitness and the neurological adaptation of fitness, particularly, how you can absolutely take somebody who will not, quote unquote, do anything physical in that entire endeavor. Obviously they do a lot physical, but you from the outside looking, being like, they just sit there and look at a screen and use their thumbs. I'm like, it's way bigger than that, especially if you understand like the neurological stimulation there. But like, to completely understand how you could massively stack the deck for somebody through just the same thing that might actually be just taken for granted inside a CrossFit affiliate. So I think it's super cool that you've done it, and maybe that's a good foray into like getting to actually we were going to talk about, which is your backstory. We'll talk about how we get there, so we can kind of come back to that, because like I do want people to understand that first and foremost, you're not just a gamer. Like, you are one of the loyal people, and like, in fact, you've been doing CrossFit probably longer than most people that are going to listen to this thing. So I think let's start there, and then how you kind of got drawn into this world, because that part of the story is fascinating to me.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah. I started CrossFit halfway into 2008. My background has been in exercise science. Like, that's what I did. I loved physical education as a kid. I wanted to work in some capacity within the exercise science, sports science world. So I got my undergraduate degree in sports medicine at Pepperdine University, which is just about an hour and a half from where I grew up. The location sort of speaks for itself. It's Malibu. It's a world-class point break with first, second, third point. If anyone on this, listening surfs at all, then you understand that it's a destination in terms of surfing. Yeah. But geographically, it's also super interesting because there's this amazing beach, and then there's the Santa Monica Mountains. And the city of Malibu, essentially 20-something miles long. It's kind of like if you compare it to the country of Chile along the western border of South America, right? Yeah. It's like long, it's skinny, it's got mountains, it's got oceans. And basically it doesn't have much in between. So in college, I can go from, surf, skimboard, body surf at some point during the day, cross over Pacific Coast Highway and take a mountain bike or trail run up, from obviously 0 foot sea level, all the way up to close to 3,000 feet, which is not a tall mountain, right? They're hills, but it's great mountain biking and trail running, and you could do that all day. And so I did it for 4 years, essentially. Did my undergraduate degree in sports science, and I'll mention two professors, Doctors Holden and Priscilla McRae, were two of my mentors, and I worked with them on research and then after college, but they come into play in terms of FITGMR, later on. So I did a lot of research. I loved the geography. And so many years later, when the opportunity came, actually it was like 11 years after I graduated, the opportunity came to teach in the physical education department at Pepperdine. I took them up on that. I was hired by those professors. And in a year, I ended up running the physical education department. So about 20 different instructors teaching everything from sailing. I brought in a surfing program. I taught a hiking class. I turned a jogging 101 is what they called it they started it back in the 70s. And I turned it into a 5K, 10K, half marathon training program. I actually ran cross country in college as well. So and I joined the cross country team because I just wanted to be on a team again. It's what I missed from high school the most. After, after doing all of those sports, I just walked onto the cross country team in my third year of college. So I got to teach a lot of great classes. I got to work on the administrative side of things. I actually like to kind of program and work with kind of the administrative side of running a physical education department was really great. And I had a longboard in my office and I could see the ocean and I'd go out and surf. And still, after about 5 years of doing that, I didn't want to do it forever. So I took the teaching and coaching side of things that I had always loved, and to shrink sort of that 20-year period of my life into 2 minutes, I essentially opened my CrossFit affiliate about a mile from the university. Now, I couldn't speak about this without mentioning a guy named Simon Jenkins, who was a visiting faculty member. He is, aside from my wife, he can get more work done. He can compress more work into a single bout of sort of stationary time at a computer than anyone that I've ever met in my life. Like he literally wrote an encyclopedia of sports science, a 2-volume, 500 something page compendium. He currently, I guess he's probably in his 20th year of starting the International Journal of Sports Science and Coaching. He's from the UK, and he was a visiting faculty member that was right next door to my office in the PE department. He was also an Olympic weightlifting coach to golfers in the UK. Now, when we talk about CrossFit, the perpendicularity of CrossFit and video game play, you might also think of, at least back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, you'd think of anything related to weightlifting in golf was anathema. Like you didn't do it. But this guy knew that when he brought power to golfers, they could hit the ball further. When he brought he had his PhD in psychology. When he brought his mind games essentially to golfers, they mentally were better. Lisa, you know all about this. Like they became better at golf. So he could bring power and the mental game to golfers. And what a better thing to put together. Now, I mention him because he was the first person that taught me anything about Olympic weightlifting. He was the guy that that handed me a 20-kilo bar to put over my head, and I couldn't overhead squat it. Now, yes, I was a cross-country runner, but I have always, I've been okay to good at any sport that I've ever done and picked things up pretty quickly. Yet I could not overhead squat a 20-kilo bar. Now, we know that that's not an easy thing to do. But I worked with Simon in Olympic weightlifting, and he was my first insight into, okay, it's not all about cardiovascular endurance and sports performance. It is about weightlifting, powerlifting. So that said, if I'd spent more time on the internet, like 2002 to 2004, I would have found Coach Glassman at that point. I really didn't do that. And I found CrossFit when I found it, which was in 2008. But one of the great things that I learned about Simon was that you can always put things together that you don't necessarily think are going to fit, like golfing and Olympic lifting, like performance, fitness, and video game playing. Now, Simon's also important for a very key reason, and it's a movement called the Simon Shuffle. And I'm going to do something moderately unorthodox. We've been sitting for 28 minutes, and that's probably too long for anyone to be stationary. So I'm going to stand up. You can if you want, but I'm already standing. Okay, cool. We're at a standing desk. So one of the things we do with video game players is we add this thing to their life called a quick drill. And a quick drill is just something that you do after sitting at a computer for a while. So 28 minutes is actually a League of Legends match would be a fast match if it were 28 minutes.
Oh, really?
Lasts from like 30 to 35 minutes and maybe 40 minutes sometimes. So like in a normal distribution, a game lasts about this long. And then the players are going to play, if they're doing a best of 5, they have 4 more matches potentially to play if it goes to the 5th and final match. So in between matches, Cloud9's League of Legends team does what's called the Simon Shuffle. And we do this at my gym all the time. Like I brought this into CrossFit, even though this was not a CrossFit training sort of movement. In fact, when I was on the CrossFit seminar staff, when I was in my internship to get on the staff, I did this with a group, and you can't bring anything new to a level one, right? So immediately they were like, stop doing the Simon Shuffle. I was like, okay. But I can bring anything to the world of video game play. I'm actually going to do this for 2 minutes. And we know what happens when you do this, right?
Yeah.
We also know what happens when you stay seated and when you drink a Mountain Dew and when you go from match to match. So a lot of these guys are streaming the in-between match. So the player will play, they'll win or lose their League of Legends match, and they'll go right into streaming, or they'll continue with their stream talking about what happened. Like they'll do what's called a VOD review of what happened in that match and how they can get better. So all I'm doing right now clearly is jumping up and down. So for someone that cannot stand, maybe they're just sitting in their chair, shaking their arms, just moving themselves up and down. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because Simon, when he would go to do Olympic weightlifting, he would come into my office, which was next door to his, and he would do this for 30 minutes. Okay, so now what I'm feeling is like the buzz of my circulation, my heart rate, all of that other exercise science stuff that we can talk about, why what I just did is super important. And my heart rate's probably 100 to 120, 100 to 110, I think. It amped up that much. And now if you don't think that doing that for 2 minutes is difficult, watch someone that's a professional video game player, or I'll say, watch someone that never moves. Try and do that. They don't have the cardiovascular capacity to do that, but you know why that doesn't matter? Their calves can't handle it. Like literally a 17-year-old, a high school student will reach down and grab the calves and say, I can't do that anymore. And so I'll have to show them that you don't actually have to bounce. You can just bend at the knees and waist. Or like I was saying, you could just shrug your shoulders and you can get the benefit of increased circulation, blood pressure. Gosh, there's a study that one of my colleagues at FITGMR just sent me today that talked about deep vein thrombosis in video game players. The cohort was between 17 and 22 years old. Why are we talking about DVT with people playing video games? And the research was related to what type of lower leg compression garment was best, or was 6 minutes of walking best? And we know the answer to that, right? 6 minutes of walking blows any kind of compression sort of thing out of the water. So Simon taught me the Simon Shuffle. It's really nothing more than a boxing shuffle, but I can't call it a boxing shuffle because Simon is the one that invented it. And because he would do it until he sweated through his shirt in warming up for Olympic weightlifting. So we bring 2 minutes of that in between every 30-minute match of League of Legends or whatever game you play, and that changes everything. Again, we can, if this is more of a sports science sort of focus, we can talk specifically about what happens in the brain, the change in the chemistry. Sitting down, imagine losing a match and just through the headset screaming at your players. You go to the bathroom, the other one goes to get something to eat. The other three are on their phones talking to people, like, you know, or looking at their Twitter accounts, even worse. And they're completely flaming out. They're tilted, as video game players call it. Is that word getting tilted in the regular vernacular, like outside of the video game world?
I've never heard it used in that context.
No. Right. It's a funny enough, it's the analog version of, like, think of the pinball machine. When you pick it up, you're pissed off because the ball gets stuck, you get tilted, right? So that's in the video game world, getting tilted is becoming mentally unhinged because your players or yourself played so poorly, or the people on Twitter are flaming you because you lost the match. Yeah. Well, when you move, this is, to us, this is so obvious. When you go outside, when you move your body, these players at Cloud9 can now go into their garage and get on an assault bike and ride it at what I would say, go between 50 and 60 RPMs and just sit on that for 2 minutes. Hang from the pull-up bar, walk back in, and you're ready for the next match. It's no wonder that the guys on this team have, I would say, 20 extra tools to help them in a 6-minute break that other guys don't have when they go back to scrimmage against another team.
Mm-hmm.
Do something after you're sitting for a while, right? So now I've done, and well, we can talk about the FITGMR app later, but I can quantify what I just did in terms of, I did a quick drill called the Simon Shuffle for 2 minutes. I can put that down as something that you can quantify, like it's measurable, it's repeatable, it's observable. And I did that. And there was a physiologic, chemical response in my body. There's so much open for in the research world. So if the American College of Sports Medicine wanted to get into the research domain of video game play and how high performance, how to affect high performance video game play in the elitist of athletes, there's so much that we could do. Gee, God, and I could go on and on about little things like this, but that one thing, that what we call at FITGMR, a quick drill of moving for 2 minutes, is unknown in the professional realm of video games 6 years ago when I entered in it. Okay, so I took you. Go ahead, Tony. Interrupt me for a second.
No, I think there's a lot I want to say about that, because it's such a, you said one part of it, which is like, it's so obvious to us, but like one part of the big issue that I think faces so many people inside the CrossFit space, affiliate owners, coaches, even clients and members, is that, you almost become tone deaf to the world around you to a certain degree. And like, and you don't almost, you literally do, right? Because when you spend yourself immersed in a culture like that, even if it's a 50-person affiliate or if it's a 500-person affiliate, like that becomes your people, and you almost become, not able to speak to these other people. And so you take something that's like, so identifiable as a gamer, and you could just give them something so simple as, just a neurological impulse of just get up and move your body with a quantifiable sort of approach. Like, and it makes a measurable, observable, repeatable improvement in other things. That is it is the entire emphasis and the entire premise of what CrossFit is supposed to be, right? And it's like, it's regularly learn and play new sports, but this also applies to so many other things. And like that, there's so much you could talk about with it. And I think that part is just, it's fascinating really to me, that it's like, it's not so much that, sports and gamers are antithetical to each other. It's just that it's such an unknown, but the confluence is obvious, right? There's no way to deny it. The number of people who are playing it is so large, and like, it's now an Olympic sport. It's in your face, whether you like it or not. Right. Like, and the thing is that it's cool to see you take, a life of experience and research and, and apply that to a subset that most people they want to write off at first, right? They just want to be like, stupid gamer, because they have this Ready Player One sort of notion as to like this dystopian future that's going to be present if we let kids keep playing video games. But it's like, both can be true.
Let me give you sort of the opposite perspective of the Ready Player One, and that's Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
Right. The sim game. Have you seen the movie? Because anyone that doesn't understand the interface between, say, what is real and what is possible with video games has to see that, because it is the answer. And I can't remember the kid's name, that one top sim player from of the game Gran Turismo from the UK. He is a professional race car driver. It's been his career. He's not won the biggest races ever, but actually he was with two other sim racers. They won Le Mans. Do you know why? It's because they've raced it thousands of times. How many times have normal, like the regular professional race car drivers, raced that course? In game, just a handful. He's raced it thousands of times. He knows every corner. I won't belabor the comparisons, because you can watch and should watch the movie. Like, it's
a great movie.
It is a great movie. And movies are not easy for us as a family, because we don't like the quote inappropriate stuff with kids. Like, we want the right movie at the right time, and don't want to have to bring up all of these other things about life just because a movie forces it upon us. But that movie, you can show anyone, and I think they say shit once. Like, that's they drink beer around a fire and then outrun the police. And that's when he learns he's actually really good at driving. But this notion of a lot of times I give a talk that's based on these three individuals. And one is a professional race car driver. The other is a Call of Duty player. And the other one is a fighter pilot. And their need for physical fitness is different, but all of them need to be physically fit. And yet we understand that the driver and the pilot are physically fit, right? They're top physical specimens, or else they would not get those jobs. But the video game player is moving into a world, well, we are well into it now, like a decade into kids being really good at, say, flying drones or operating different things behind a computer that is of utmost interest to the military. There's no reason, there's no other reason that the U.S. Army sponsors so many of these high school and collegiate matches. Like if you go to and I do, right? Like I've been to more in-person high school elite level video game matches than any sports combined over the past number of years. And the U.S. Army is there recruiting people for the Army by way of video game playing. So anyway, that's a little bit of a side note. Those three players, the pilot, the race car driver, the professional video game player, are all cognitive performers. They are elite in any cognitive sense. If they wanted to become brain surgeons, clearly they'd have a lot to learn, but they have the mental acuity and the ability with their hands that a top grade surgeon does. And say that a surgeon would perform better if they slept well. That's Matthew Walker covers that, right? In Why We Sleep. That they would perform better if they eat well, right? If they have a level of physical fitness, right? This is where we just go blah 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 to the CrossFit crowd because we know this.
And it's that old saying, isn't it? You know, their needs differ by degree, not by kind. Like they need, you know, they need that physical development to help their cognitive and their coordination and all of those things. But it's all those three areas, those three I guess careers that you mentioned, all need that sort of work. And whereas we get very focused and very tunnel view if we think about an athlete as just in someone who runs down a track or throws or lifts something, versus, well, no, this is a pursuit that actually requires, they're not, you know, back squatting 500 pounds, but it requires heavy cognitive lifting and, you know, skill and dexterity, which is often overlooked.
Yeah. And on the other side of that, in the back of my head for 10 years, I've been writing a paper on why the dumb jock doesn't exist, right? Or that is a subset stereotype of something that doesn't happen. Like when you listen to Tyson Bagent, the amount of study he does in his sport to understand tactically what's going on, right? Like that in order to be at a level of a professional football player, like that has to be there. And you understand that when you watch people train at the highest levels, they are masters of the cognitive domain, not just on the sort of mental, not on the mindset side, although they have that as well, but on the just understanding of their body in space. Like that's completely clear. The interesting thing I wonder, I've never asked Greg this, but the phrase tip of the spear and backfill with grandmothers, did he make that up in like 2010 when he realized that's what was going on? Because just like this, when I talk about when I go to a high school match, a high school esports match, Arlington, Texas, there is the baseball, the football stadium, the basketball stadium right next to each other. And right across the street is an esports complex. And it was built there for a reason, because it has more in common with its three neighbors than being anywhere else in the neighborhood, right? It's on the west side of Dallas. But when I go to these, you know, this is this is the Texas State competition for Rocket League, Overwatch, League of Legends, a bunch of Super Smash Brothers. Those are video games.
I know that now.
Yeah, exactly. I speak mainly with parents because what high school kid is going to want to talk to the fitness guy at a video game competition? And I normally walk up to parents that tend to be standing alone, and the dads tend to stand like this, and the moms tend to clump together and talk about anything that has nothing to do with video games. But I find the parents and I just start to talk to them because I know that they're worried. I know that it's like, oh my God, my kid is not going to play basketball anymore because he found this. And we talk about like, what are you watching here? And he's like, I have no idea. This is totally foreign to me. And so my job I've taken upon myself when I speak with parents is like, how can I reframe this to make it more understandable? Because guaranteed back in the 40s and 50s, when kids were going out for like the baseball team or the football team, many of the parents were like, you are wasting your time after school when you should come home and work at the drugstore, at our on the farm. Like that was a colossal waste of time. And I just helped them sort of restructure the idea that while that kid playing at the top level of high school Texas, high school football in Texas is huge. Esports is huge in Texas. It's kind of a mecca in the United States. They're worried, but this is what the kid is passionate about. There are 30 something other jobs. Like there's a bunch of different things that you can read about different careers that are related to video games and esports. Yeah. So back in the 80s, when a kid was locked in their room playing video games, kids thought that they were parents thought that they were like coding. Like, no, they're not coding. They're playing video games and they're learning how to stream and they're doing video editing software and they're learning like casting skills. Like there's a school district in New Jersey that the kids run all of the competitions, right? There's 3 big competitions. There's a spring, a fall, and there's like the mega competition of the year. And the kids do everything from setting up all of the streaming to the casting to the stage to everything, like the brackets. And clearly there's an infrastructure and an ecosystem that exists that you can move into in terms of a job. Like every kid can't be Mr. Beast, right? Every kid can't have their exclusive YouTube channel with 1 million followers, but every 1 million follower YouTube person has this org chart of people that work for them. And that's where you're going. If you're not going to be a professional player, clearly you can coach, you can manage. The current vice president of operations at Cloud9 is a medical school dropout who dropped out of, he went to Stanford, then he went to UCI medical school. And I believe it was in either his 3rd or 4th year. It wasn't like his first year and he was failing out. He was completely successful in medical school and he dropped out because he got a job managing, or maybe even co-managing at the time, a League of Legends team for Cloud9. And he dropped out of medical school for that purpose. And he's climbed up the chart of Cloud9 and he now is like second in command of this entire organization. So when his mom actually is trained now by Trixie Aria, one of the original Valley girls in CrossFit. Yeah. Like the connections are deep. I won't digress too much, but this idea that there are other careers that are related to esports and video games that are outside of the coding world. UCI, which I talked about just a second ago, the medical school, UCI has a completely connected, you can major in esports management and you can become a professional esports player with it while getting an undergraduate degree. And believe me, it's not an easy degree, right? It's not like I won't compare it to something. It's more like rocket science than it is like physical education.
Yeah. The neurological demands of playing any video game, I think it would be a disservice to dismiss them, but I think it's easy for most people to dismiss them. In fact, I mean, because it's human nature, right? There's nothing scarier than what we don't know. And for that reason, we tend to vilify the things that sit outside of our ability to perceive or understand or process them. Because the only way we can really know anything is our ability to process information through our own experience. And so for people who are outside the gaming space or didn't grow up in that space, it's much easier for them to to want to will it away or hope it away than it is for them to understand it. And it's, you were talking about it in terms of like the three athletes or the three careers, but like, if you don't understand the interface between effectively a video game and the real world, then you've never been on an airplane, right? As somebody who is, halfway through my pilot's license, most of my time is spent in a simulator. And that is the case of all the commercial pilots who are flying you to your vacation. So if you think that like this is a mismatched sort of reality for the future, it's been this way for a long time. It's just that now there's not only a constructive path towards a conventional career through games, through simulations, but now there's this passionate approach towards a fantastic sort of pursuit, which I think is super cool. And I think what is fun about this conversation for me is anybody that's watching this, that's not listening to it, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see how excited Mike gets about these things, right? And what's important about that is that you're not you didn't grow up a gamer, right? You are in the physical world. You grew up in the physical world. You were a surfer, you were a runner, you were an athlete, you understood exercise science and loved it. And that was your career. And to watch you get so excited about this just kind of shows how like the two worlds do actually, combine, or the fact that like you can go, because I've seen, the disposition that the parents have over the kids, and to know that like you can interface that because like you speak both of those languages really well. And so, you could uncross the dad's arms who's just like, listen, there can be multiple truths. Like just, maybe he's not going to play ball sports, but guess what? He's really good, or potentially could be really good at this sport, which actually might be the future. And so I think it's a very interesting thing to see that sort of excitement from you. And like, that was the hope for me in, bringing this together, was that I have a theory as it applies to CrossFit specifically in terms of its future. And that is, as a brand, as a company, HQ is focused largely on their two key actors, which is the affiliate owner and the coach, because they're the two proprietary people who are perpetuating the CrossFit space. But I think the future of CrossFit lives in the creative. And that is the people like FitFiliate, that is the people like FITGMR, there's people like you, me, and the people who took the methodology and solved a bigger problem with this conversation and its application. And you see it across the board. Most of the ideal passionate pursuits or profitable pursuits, I would say, for these endeavors tend to live in the creative space. And so I hope that HQ also starts to be like, hey, wow, like Mike is doing something really, really, really cool. Because like, we got on one hand, we got Dale doing something really, really amazing, addressing, addiction and those problems and using the methodology to do something creative and unconventional. And you got you over here taking this methodology and literally addressing the single largest subset or demographic. It's a very interesting thing. And so while everybody's so fixated on like how to help people do better thrusters and burpees, like that's one part of the conversation. But like I've said it for years, the single biggest overlooked part of fitness in general that happens, especially in CrossFit, is the development of coordination. Like no one cares about that part. They care about their weightlifting and they care about their aerobic capacity or whatever. I'm like, you don't get it. The thing that you're all getting, and you'll get it when you're 60 or 65, is that coordination element. But like you do it at a different level, which is to watch how fast those kids play those games. To anybody who's not watched it, you have got to watch it. And you don't have to even be good at the games to be like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
Like they are so fast, and you can't really, what's needed, like if you've not played video games for 20 or plus years, one thing that's important to know for everybody listening to this, you don't play video games really by yourself anymore on your console with your memory card. Like video games are played with thousands of people around the world, and you're trying to kill each other in the game, right? And so like the speed of which you can do that is a very real world skill. And when you watch it live, it's like, as somebody who had no interest in it and never paid any attention to it until I started talking to you, and then I started like browsing, and I was like, whoa, this is wild. So I think it's very cool to watch how passionate you get about it. But I think it's easy to understand and to see passion when you start to understand like, hey, my life's work can do something really, really, really cool. And like you've done that with what you've built with FitGMR, and really the accidental sort of like empire you kind of created with it, which I think is super cool to anybody that's in this space.
Yeah. Let me speak a little bit to the transition. Like, how did it go from because CrossFit Malibu, it's we're going to be 15 coming up in August. So we've been around a while, still at a mile from the university. And essentially, when we opened, the sports medicine department of Pepperdine University came with us to learn, because they were all cardiovascular endurance athletes. And most, I don't know if this is still the case, but basically as an undergraduate in sports science, I learned a lot about cardiovascular activity, and not a lot about anything else. And it wasn't about the public health of increasing fitness across the 99.9%, but it was how to get faster for marathon runners and triathletes, right? Like in the late 80s, early 90s. So the faculty essentially, Holden and Priscilla, two of these, they were probably in their mid 50s at the point, came down because they had really never lifted weights. One was a professional in terms of racket sports. So Priscilla was great at anything racket. She was an elite tennis player. And then Holden is a mountain bike athlete from South Africa, who got his PhD studying under Tim Noakes in South Africa. So it comes around. Tim Noakes's nutrition network is actually FITGMR's nutrition partner, which is kind of a cool thing. And Holden is a co-founder of FITGMR. So when they came down to CrossFit Malibu, like, I taught them how to lift weights. They had never moved barbells. They had never squatted. They'd never deadlifted. They took that back up to the university and started basically helping the sports science department understand that sports science is more than just running long distances slowly. Yeah. In 2012, the entire sports science department from Pepperdine, there were 5 of them, went to a level 1 in San Diego, USD. Run by Stefan, was the flow master. Jason Kalipa was still on staff at the time. They were the first exercise science department to ever to become, as a department, level 1 certified. Greg came a number of times to give talks to the undergraduate students, to the faculty as well, which was a really great cohesive program that put CrossFit together with Pepperdine and CrossFit Malibu. So we were lucky to have them down at the hut quite a bit, talking to groups. So with Holden working out at the gym for 10 years before he retired at like mid 60s, he had done a lot of work with the military and with Red Bull High Performance. So he had worked with elite performers in the military. He had worked a lot with non-traditional X Games style athletes at Red Bull. And Red Bull came to him and said basically that they were going to go in the realm of sponsoring esport athletes. How do we get them physically fit? And this was back in 2017, and that hadn't existed yet. Yeah. He put together a program. Essentially, it didn't work. He put together another program and said, you have to have this guy, Mike Anderson, run the program. You can't just give it to the organization and think that they're going to be successful. Now, luckily, the organization that I was working with has an owner that had already started to incorporate physical fitness into the player schedule for the day. And very importantly, he was smart enough to understand that the team managers, the coaches, and other people that worked in the organization had to do the workouts as well, not just the players. And so I started running these fitness programs with, imagine like, a JV level professional player who's training with the CEO, the owner, and the founder of the company. Like when that kind of stuff mix, you understand this in a CrossFit gym, when you bring together 15 people in a class, like at CrossFit Malibu, an undergraduate kid in finance gets a job right out of college from the guy that's been, selling bonds for 20 years and then becomes a partner at the company. That's why, if you hate fitness, join a local CrossFit gym so you can get an internship, right? And that's how we got a lot of sports science majors. Was you could train with the sports science department if you came down to CrossFit Malibu and sat next to them on the rower. And then you got to spend time with faculty members, which is really, it's the reason to go to college, to get connected with people that are doing things in research and in the fields that you love to study. So basically, I became what was potentially one of the first strength and conditioning professionals working in esports. I was certainly the first one that's worked with this team for 6 years. So I get to go to Korea when they go to Worlds. We like the World Championships. I'll go to Korea and help them set up and establish a fitness routine at wherever they're staying at a hotel. I was in New York City in Worlds, and a couple of years ago, and coaches and managers and players from other teams that were in the fitness center at this big hotel in Times Square would come up to me or the team and say, how do you get your entire team to be here? Well, it's easy. They have to be here. Like it's cool that I can say that right now on the West Coast, there is a coach from FITGMR that's coaching Cloud9's Valorant team right now. Like, they are in the driveway, 5 players, 2 managers, and potentially, the sports psychologist, as well as the data scientist, as well as the social media manager. Like, they're working out in a 2-car garage outfitted with Rogue. Like, this is a garage gym, like CrossFit Cloud9. They could affiliate. In fact, another topic, but if it was less than $4,500, maybe we would affiliate. So like that's basically how we got started. And at some point that drew more of my attention, because what I loved about CrossFit, and I talked with you about this, Tony, a couple of weeks ago, is I love taking someone through these progressions that get them from 0 pull-up to 1 pull-up, from never lifting a barbell to, over a period of time, for some people it's 2 days, for others it's an entire year, of going from lifting a barbell for the first time to deadlifting body weight. A sports science professor at Pepperdine, who's now in her mid-70s, she's retired, after 2.5 years of CrossFit, beginning at age 64, went to the games and placed 10th in 2012. She did her first chest to bar pull-up at the games, right? And so she was 4th because she could do chest to bar pull-ups. And we realized at some point when she was practicing over and over, well, if she gripped, if not a chin up, but not a standard grip, if she mixed grip, she could pull herself that high and then pull herself forward. And so she got a couple chest to bar pull-ups, placed 10th. Now, he was a sports science professor who really had only done yoga, hiked, and played a little bit of volleyball. And there's a bunch of stuff on YouTube. CrossFit headquarters really loved following Lori Nelson for a couple of years when she was making that transition. She's now a world record holder in a couple of age categories and a couple of weight categories for Olympic weightlifting. She didn't set out to become a world record holder at anything. She set out to go from 0 to 1. And so it is in this work with people that are 0 to 1 type athletes that, there's an eye surgeon at the gym, and I know that she does better at her job because of CrossFit. There are attorneys that I know cognitively and, stress-wise do better because of CrossFit. And I don't know anything about their quote sport. I don't know what they do for a living, really. I can't do it. I just know that what I do with them every day, I know that it's important to talk about this. The progressions, the scaling, and the modifications are things that, as a CrossFit coach, I learned to implement with everyday people and with what I'll call now special populations. I can work with geriatric people that can make it into the upper echelons of high performance sports. But I am even better at working with 80 to 90-year-olds on helping them get up off the ground. And this actually happened. Drills that look a lot like Turkish get-ups are really good at getting people up off the ground, right? Being able to turn over, to get on all fours, and to come up to standing is a skill that was necessary for one of my clients, Bill Carson, who dementia got the best of him after a number of years, and he would basically break out of the house at night. And when he shows up in the morning with like bruises and scratches, he showed up. He didn't end up in a flower bed.
He got up and
he was able to roll over. And those were things that I learned partially with, Tucker in the gymnastics class. Like, I remember specifically working with Bill, helping him roll over, and think of a couple of things in the gymnastics class that helped me out. But I think my ability to work with esport athletes is not because I know progressions, or not because I have a level 1, and not because I have a bachelor's degree in sports science. It's because I've worked with so many people over the years to try and figure out what's best for this person, looking them in the eye and able to say, don't worry. Like, this is my job to figure out. When you have an 18-year-old kid that's never played sports at all, that is visually trembling in their first exercise class, like most people that own a CrossFit gym haven't dealt with that level of anxiety with someone showing up. But University of Oklahoma, they have a really good esports program. They've implemented the FITGMR training program. And for the first time, 2 Overwatch teams, this is 10 players, show up to the school fitness center and have the guts, I would say. They're brave enough to now walk into the fitness facility and actually use it for what it was intended for, to improve not just their fitness, but to improve what we talk about is we know that fitness is going to improve. That's easy. We know that mental health changes. We know that people eat better, they sleep better. But most important to them, it makes them better at what they want to be good at. And to place a value judgment on what someone wants to be good at, right? Like, it's kind of ridiculous.
And I think like this is a really good example. You know, we often hear with affiliate owners and coaches, it's like, oh, you know, it's too hard to get clients, and like all the people who want to do CrossFit have done it or want to do it or da da da. And then they're talking about underserved populations. But I think this is a really good example that underserved populations are not just, you know, people battling chronic disease.
Yeah.
If you want to grow and diversify your business and reach the people who can really benefit from your skills, your knowledge, like you said, you've got an 18-year-old who's literally trembling in front of you, to be able to say, I've got you, you know, I will take care of you. Like there's a whole population of people, and we've already discussed how many people are gaming out there, that even at a casual level of gaming, that if they got out, moved more, saw some daylight, you know, focused on some, you know, ate more broccoli, drank more water, their entire life would be better, as well as their even casual gaming. So it's reframing the paradigm, I think, that we can get stuck into as affiliate owners about what are the underserved populations that we can talk to, like who are we talking to, you know, rather than just, you know, focusing on one area, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and we've decided that big picture, we're going to meet them where they're at. We're not going to force them to come into a CrossFit gym. In fact, I brought the team over to my gym one time, and I was kind of hopeful that maybe they'd be like, all right, let's do a workout. Like, because we go visit CrossFit gyms and we're like, all right, let's use the equipment. I lured them from West LA. I brought them out to stand up paddle, to get in the ocean, to do some hiking. But one of them said, let's go by the CrossFit Malibu. So we went in, they looked around and we're like, okay, let's go to lunch. Like, I know them well enough at that point to pretty much know that they're not going to want to, you know, just get in a quick workout because, you know, we've got some Alico barbells.
Yeah.
But, you know, we've decided to meet them where they're at. And really what that means is that there's a mobile app on both of the, you know, Google Play and Apple. And it functions much like .com did, but it's not limited to the physical. Actually, neither was .com, but like .com had a photograph, a workout, and the ability to connect with people. Every day on the app, we post today's program. And today's program may be physical. In fact, 5 days a week, I'm getting onto the app right now. Today is Wednesday. So it is actually a physical workout. So on the app, it says today's program. Basically, you hit the button and it gives you a 20-minute workout. It takes you from like that 20 minutes involves explaining a warm up, the actual workout, and the cool down and some stretching. So only 20 minutes, three to 4 days a week. There's a bunch of other things. So today's program on Wednesday is a short yoga set with some meditation. On Tuesdays, it happens to be education that's related to the mental conditioning side of things. So we'll have, you know, a coach to professional players do a 5 to 10 minute talk related to, say, how to manage tilt within the game, or et cetera, a bunch of other stuff like that. So you just go on the app, you look at what we program for the day, and you do that thing.
Hmm.
Now, many of us, I'll speak for the three of us, when we started CrossFit, we went to .com and we read everything we possibly could. Now, there are players that go onto the app that get super into it. There are some that say, hey, I'm just here for the sleep education. Hey, I'm just here for the nutrition part. I'm just here for this, and that's perfectly fine. Like, we don't have the pyramid of hierarchical approach to fitness that CrossFit has listed in a pyramid. We have pillars where you can go to any one, and if you want to start on one and completely ignore for X amount of days, months, or years the other pillars, you can, because we know that you'll get better at just a little bit of it. So we have this, but we also have a dashboard that's on the laptop that a coach can follow. So the players can enter their metrics, they can do their stuff, and they can journal back and forth with the coach about what they're having troubles with. And we've already found that, particularly in collegiate programs, players would prefer to actually type into the journal to communicate with the coach, to walk up to the coach and say, hey, I'm having trouble sleeping. Or more obviously, I think a 19-year-old doesn't go up to the coach and saying, hey, I'm having relationship problems, or hey, my parents are a real drag, but they'll type it into the phone, and it'll open up sources of communication that have already, in a number of different examples, transformed well, we'll call them student athletes, because some of them are even getting the 2A Division I sort of scholarship type things for playing on video game teams. So again, that's one of the sort of the discussions with affiliate owners too. You can't sit at your gym and hope people come to you. You sometimes have to go where the other people are at.
Yeah, there's a big piece of that conversation that I think is centered in what we talk a lot about, which is, training versus coaching thing. And what's great about you, and kind of part and parcel to this conversation that Lisa just brought up, is that, one of the beautiful things that I think is often overlooked about CrossFit and the methodologies itself, it's not really about like owning it, knowing it, and being proud that like I'm a CrossFitter in trying to fit people into that box. It's, as a tool, its ability to better understand people and help people. And I think a lot of that comes through the disparity between, thinking that your job inside a CrossFit affiliate or as a CrossFit coach is to teach people CrossFit, versus I'm going to use CrossFit to better help people or better understand people. And so, and there's a lot of nuance in there that we don't necessarily need to jump into, but you've done a really good job of taking a life of work and research, et cetera, and not stand on a pedestal and be like, here's what I know and here's what I own in terms of my knowledge and here's what I'm going to teach you. Instead, you have done the thing that I think is so important in terms of what is an actual coach, is that based on everything that I know, I can better understand. And so I don't know if society is responsible for it in a lot of situations where like we're just taught to like possess knowledge and own knowledge, and that makes us important because now I have an acronym or I have this or I have that. But the people who change the world are the ones who they don't own and possess and proselytize their knowledge. They're the ones that use their knowledge to better understand lots of different things. And in this case, we're talking about the infinite application and capability that is fitness to this, we'll call it a marginalized subset of people who are disregarded as non-physical in so many cases. And you've taken two completely different languages in really the world's opinion, and you can speak them well, not because you stood on a stage and said, I know what's best for you in terms of fitness. You said, show me what you're working with. Right. And that is such a magical part of what we do know to be the case that happens inside every affiliate that maybe gets taken for granted or we overlook. But like, I think is the reason why conversations like this are so important in the CrossFit landscape, is because like, dude, it is so much bigger than a workout. And so people like yourself applying that and using it, not to teach people CrossFit, but to help better understand people through CrossFit, I think is super underutilized or underappreciated, for sure.
Yeah, my role with the company, I'll finish talking about like Holden McRae is one of the co-founders, and he's a sports science guy. So anything that's channeled through Like, we want to know the science about it. Like, for example,
Yeah.
our company just authored a paper that went to the IOC, the Olympic Committee in Paris. Like, they're reading about esports. It's a 120-page document that talks about the validity of partially why esports could be in the Olympics. But the most important part is the science behind what's going on while people are gaming, and why that qualifies as why it qualifies the players as athletes, and why essentially esports is sport. So we've authored that paper. So there's the science head of things. There's the business development side of things. So my wife is the CEO of the company. This is what she's done her entire life, is run things. And it was because 6 years ago, I was being asked to be on all these podcasts to talk about like exercise and gaming. And it was, 30 minute to an hour podcast of like, hey, what are you doing? And it's like, they talk about how crazy it was. And I was getting asked for all, to be on all these different podcasts. And people were saying, hey, send me your one pager, or give me your write up on this thing. And I'm like, there is no write up. And my wife Kristen was like, oh, I'll do the write up. You keep going out and doing all the stuff with anyone who asks you to do it, and I'll keep writing it up. So she's written herself up into, a company that, for the past 3 years, we have quite a bit of investors. We've put a lot of money into it ourselves. We have an app that is really, in terms of technology, it's the way that we will connect with our platform. And to think about it, again, a lot of these comparisons, a lot of the purpose of why I'm on this is to talk about the comparisons of CrossFit, but that's how CrossFit engaged with the original group, right? Like, I think I can still go back and, type in things from, the 08, 11, right? August 11th, 2008. I could see what the workout was that I did, and I could compare myself with, Spiel and anyway, so not to get off that topic, but the idea of having a science department, having the business development and strategy department, we've got a whole group of people that are working in other companies with learning the neuroscience of what's going on with things like pupil dilation and pupil fixation, and where you're looking at on the screen. And this great guy, Alex Milinkovic, from a company called Curia, has coined the phrase, what the pupils are doing is basically like your cognitive heart rate. So he's looking at pupil fixation and size, and he basically has collected enough data now in universities for the past 2 years that he's been able to categorize, like, hey, if you're a first person shooter player and you have this kind of setup, it's most likely, just like in track and field, we can tell who the power athletes are going to be by the type of fiber type they have. He can categorize players based on what their pupils are doing, and then we can train them to become better at that. So we have all of these partners that we're working with that are on the sports science side of things. But we've also expanded the company to, we actually have an entire separate parallel vertical that is in-game coaching. So we have trained over 150 people that coach over 6 different titles of games, because we know how to coach people. So when you know how to coach people, and then understand the strategy of the games and what the players need, we've had essentially, we run a coaches prep and coaches training program that we've sent so far 30 something people through, and there's 2 cohorts going on right now. So when you know the game, when you know what it takes to play the game, and you know what it takes to coach the game, you can actually coach coaches on how you can better coach people to play in the game. And that's a huge lack of what's going on in high schools everywhere, because basically, if there's esports programs in every high school, and let me tell you, if you don't know that there's an esports program at your son or daughter's high school, there is an esports program at their high school. And the person that's coaching it is totally unequipped in most cases to do that. So there's this whole need for, you can't just take the history teacher because he's nice to us, and so of course he's going to be the sponsor of our esports program. Think about this. If you were a high school English teacher who's kind of the popular teacher who will do anything for the students, that doesn't know about Rocket League, Super Smash, Fortnite, and now you have to run the program. Well, we have coaches that can drop in through Discord, and if you don't know what Discord is, you're 20 steps behind already. But we can coach you in the game at your school, at your high school or university, through basically an entirely other vertical, which is our EDU section. So FITGMR education. And then there's me. I'm the one that just goes out to places and proselytizes, essentially. I show up at high schools, at universities and colleges, at events. And over the last number of years, we show up at the International Esports Federation has a World Esports Championships every year. So we've taken our entire FITGMR family, including our own kids, to Yash, Romania, to the World Esports Championships, where 500 athletes are literally going for the world championships in these games. Most guys, the year before that, it was in Indonesia. So essentially, we go to where the gamers are, we meet them where we're at, and we ask them. And it's not just the athletes. Oftentimes, it's the coaches and it's the delegates from the countries. What do you guys need us to do? And they tell us things like, "Oh, we need a quiet tent area where we can get we can get players mentally ready to compete." This is kind of like the 50s in terms of traditional sports, when people showed up at the Olympics and they're given a dorm room and a day where they compete, and the rest they fend for themselves. So FITGMR is really filling that need, where we show up where the competitions are, and we are that high performance sports group that understands what it means to show up essentially at the Olympics without a coach, and we become that person that can come in and help. So that's kind of a broad brush stroke of what FITGMR is doing in the big picture.
No, I think it's such a cool business model for so many different reasons. But I mean, from this side of the screen and for this perspective, everybody listening to it, right? Like there's a common a dismissal or belief that like I'm just an affiliate owner, and you kind of touched on it, like the magic of what exists inside an affiliate in terms of its infinite opportunities and its network and its people and its things. Like there's it is cool to see quote unquote just an affiliate owner go on to do such a something so cool, so diverse, so big, so so businessy, right, in terms of like how people probably think about this thing, but all really built on the same core principles that everybody, we all live by, breathe by, understand and appreciate. You just started to apply them differently, and so many people are going to benefit from it that don't even need to necessarily walk inside an affiliate. And that's why I think it's such a big part of the future conversation of what is CrossFit. Like, Donna's very focused on 30 million crossers by 2030. And I think that it's such a small piece of the actual conversation, because if we stopped worrying about, making people CrossFitters, and we started understanding how we could better use CrossFit to just help more people, absent of the identity, things like FITGMR pop up, things like the world of esports, stuff like that, where we don't need them to walk into the gym to appreciate that, like you said, they're going to a quote unquote affiliate that's not an affiliate, but like they're doing affiliate things, and they are just as proud of the identity of their functional fitness that they've improved through the use of the skills and drills and tools that you've given them. And so while we could get very preoccupied with 20, 30, and 30 million people in identity, we could better understand that, like, hey, this methodology is much bigger than an identity. It is quite literally, like Greg said, it is the solution to the world's most vexing problem in any conceivable way. And that doesn't just mean like we're focusing on the deadly quartet. Like everybody's going to have to start moving, because society as a whole has got us not moving, right? So whether you sat down and play a video game or not, and you're a parent who hates your kid because he sits in a room, well, shame on you, because I bet you sat at your desk all day long today, sending emails and Zooming.
Let me tell a quick story, because this is super important about the way that I never decided to approach things like this, but CrossFit has taught me how to do this, right?
Right.
We get a call from a parent. Oh my God, my kid is gaming all the time. Someone said, just call FITGMR. It's like 1-800-HELP. It's
your Ghostbusters.
You go under the bridge and you see the sign, right? Like, this guy, this parent, his name is Sean, who is now number 2 on the FITGMR leaderboard. So, then we'll die for points, right? Sean Atha, he's number 91 on the leaderboard. And I'm going to hold this up because number 2 on the leaderboard, you see that name?
Yeah.
Amon G. Green Bay Packers fans. Yes, that's Amon Green. He's the esports director at University of Nebraska, and he's second place on the second place on the FITGMR leaderboard. It only goes up to 20, so I'm on there somewhere. I'm still, not quite as great as these guys, but Sean is number one because his son's life depended on it, right? He called us and said, I have a junior in high school who won't do anything but play League of Legends. He stays up all night so he can play on the Korean servers against the players that are the best in the world. And the Korean teams tend to win the world. Korea and China tend to win the world championships. And he, as a parent, like, this is my job as a parent. What are my kids' needs? And how can I learn more about what they need to fix this problem? And he met with Kristen and I for an hour just saying, hey, here's the situation. And we told Sean, what we want you to do is get the FITGMR app at $1 a month. We probably even gave him a code because everyone needs to be doing something like this. Do it for a month and see what happens with you first. So we called us a month later. And again, this is Greg saying, write down your 5 goals in the back of your notebook, and someone raises their hand and say, do they have to be fitness related? And Greg, God, if those are your only goals that are fitness related, you have more problems that I can't help. Right. So
yeah,
Sean comes to us with that meeting and says, oh my God, 3 weeks into it, my son asked me, like, what are you doing with that? Like, you look like you're doing yoga. And you know how a 17-year-old says that to their dad.
Yeah.
You look like you're doing yoga. Yeah, you can do it anytime you want to come. I'm doing this now because I have this app that is showing me what type of yoga is good specifically for gamers. Okay. The dad also starts watching League of Legends just so he can know the players' names. And so now he has more that he can say to his son that his son can roll his eyes at, like, hey, I heard Faker is going to, and the son's like, oh God, Dad, stop. But at some point that works.
Yeah.
And a month into it, his son starts doing the meditations with him. A couple weeks later, we meet both of them online in a meeting and say, Sean, you keep doing it. And Ryan, if you do it for 2 months, we will host you in the family is in Sacramento. We'll host you in Los Angeles. You'll meet the Cloud9 team and you can go to a match together. And I'll be there. And I mean, I flew from the East Coast to go to this match with the dad and the son. They went to UC Irvine to see the program, right? Like the one of the best college programs in the United States. And he got to meet all the players. And so that's like, if I can keep doing that forever, like to watch this kid that idolizes these players and just wants to be them, be able to sit and talk. And they spoke for like a half an hour and I had no idea what they were talking about it because I don't know the game very well. And now Ryan started his own team at this, like his senior year. He went into the senior year saying, well, his dad encouraged him to start a team. No one's going to join my team. They start an esports club and there's 100 people that on the first day join. I guarantee you there's not another club on campus that's as large as that. No. Because it's the only club on campus that has something that everyone does. Right. And I have to say that the gaming community, like, you can walk into CrossFit gyms and in general, people are very welcoming. But if you're a top CrossFitter and you walk into a CrossFit affiliate, everyone wants to beat you. They don't want to hang out with you. But gaming is so different. Gaming, they just want everyone to show up. They'd rather have a team with, very skewed in terms of ability levels than to not have a team at all. So it's a community that's very accepting in terms of like joining people in, welcoming people in. So right now, Sean is still doing the FITGMR app. His son is, we're at the end of his senior year. He's built an esports program at his school. FITGMR coaches some of the teams, online in Discord, like I was telling you before. But his son, because the dad ventured out of his comfort zone and did some fitness, which was good for him, connected with his son in a way that his son wanted to connect, like everyone wins. And that's just one of those kind of stories that like a transformative, a 0 to 1 story in terms of of growth. And it's not just fitness. It's everything that you hope to improve in someone's life. And this guy is like, oh my God, I can't believe that Mike from FITGMR, who's on the videos and the CEO of the company, bothers to talk about us. Like, and I understand a little sliver of what it's like to be Greg at the CrossFit Games. Like, I will go to those places and meet with anyone for however long they want to talk and try and figure out the best way for us to continue to be of service to them. So I think that's a good
cool.
point.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's a great story really to wrap up and end on. I mean, there's a lot more that I want to talk about, but I think the nuts and the bolts of this are the same. And so I guess first and foremost, if you are somebody that's listening to this, watching this, and you don't know how to relate to the child that you have, you don't know what to do with them because they just lock themselves in the room, like, well, you probably should just reach out to Mike and FITGMR, because it sounds like that's the simplest solution is through emulation. But it's cool to see so much of the methodology and the principles and in the lessons that you learn through the space applied differently. And I hope that anybody that's listening to this is like, wow, like anything is truly possible, quite literally, with the use of CrossFit. If you're not so worried about like how to do CrossFit and you start to think about really like the application and the implementation of it, it's endless. And the point of this is not really necessarily just about CrossFit. It's very cool to see somebody build something, come from the space that is so familiar to so many people that, I think maybe some people feel stuck in, locked in, broken, or whatever they want it to be, insert in whatever expletive. And to see you guys build something so cool that is reaching so many people with something so similar and familiar to so many people, hopefully it's motivational to anybody that's listening to this. Because I think your story, I was obviously blown away, captivated by it. You're obviously a very cool dude, mainly because we're cousins, I suppose, at this point. But I think it's cool. I'm glad that you're doing it. And no doubt about it, the kids who are taking advantage of it, and the athletes and the parents and the families who are tapping into what you guys have built with FITGMR, it's saving families, right? It's fixing families, it's saving lives. And for us, that was the whole premise that FitFilly was built on, is that we wanted to save lives and fix families, and because businesses were tearing them apart. And this is the same thing at a different level, but I think it's cool you guys are doing it. And it's really cool to hear you be like, listen, I'll get on those planes, I'll go to those things, I'll do that all in the name of service. Like, there's only really one ecosystem that all of us grew up in where that is just implanted in us at our core. And like, Greg is sort of responsible for that, because it's written into the DNA of what it means to be a CrossFitter.
That is absolutely true. I agree with that.
Awesome. This has been incredibly insightful, and have loved the chat. And I know, Mike,
I'm going to go buy a video game console.
Yeah, let me get ahead of this rumor right away. You're so tan, Tony. I live in New Hampshire right now.
Yes.
And you can see the ski goggles. I have not skied a sunny day in so long. And someone in the chat, if this were live, would be saying, oh my God, Mike is so pale. He must sit in his at his console playing video games all day long. I went outside and got like face in the sun for 20 minutes before we met today.
Nice.
Most of it's just lighting, because I stand on this side of the screen a lot too. So there's that part. But
there we go.
If Tony gets a video game console, he will be very pale, no doubt. But
because I'll literally just put up a big sun lamp so that I still get sun. I'll just put the video game outside. Is what I would do.
But I know we will have you back on, Mike. There's so much more that we want to dig into and get into this space. But thank you for your time today. Super appreciate it. And
thanks for the world exclusive. We got the world exclusive of Mike's story about how CrossFit and FITGMR combined.
And it's how I said, like, I'm still deathly afraid that someday people will figure out in Malibu that CrossFit Malibu is there, because we'll be overrun by people. We're still the best kept tiny little secret in Malibu. It's the same thing for FITGMR. Like, don't tell anyone about it.
Yeah. We will be we'll put your contact details.
Same thing with affiliate. Don't tell them we exist, but they'd still find us one way or another.
They find us in the show notes, so that anyone that is in this space can reach out or who has questions, I'm sure. But keep doing the amazing work, and we'll see all of you guys on the next one. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Please remember to like and subscribe on your favorite platform. And if you know an affiliate owner, a coach, or entrepreneur that would benefit from hearing our conversations, please share this with them. We love the feedback and support we have from you guys, our audience. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find all the useful links in the show notes. We would love to connect with you. Keep doing the great work.